Use doesn't seem to be, it's not in the waiting room.
Okay.
Text. No.
And are we being live streamed now? Can we just check?
He has lost connection. Councillor Hughes has lost connection in some way. So I'll just tell him that we've restarted the meeting and he can
Thank you.
could log back in.
Are we being live streamed now? Are we? Don't worry. Are we being live streamed now? Are we ready to go? Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Right, thank you. Welcome back to the meeting following our private session to discuss the dispensation. I'm going to hand us over to the Chief Officer Governance to actually take us through then the decision that we made as a committee.
Okay, Chair. So in light of the fact that the applicant for the planning permission is Councillor McGuill's son, so a very close relative, and in light of the fact that the ward that Councillor McGuill represents is a two-member ward, which means that both her son and the views of residents can be represented by the other ward member, the committee has decided that it would be inappropriate to grant Councillor McGuill's request for a dispensation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'll move us on then to the next section of our agenda, which is items for decision. And we're going to move on to item 6, which is the draft annual report. You should find that on pages 11 to 22 of your papers. And our purpose is to actually look at this draft annual report and hopefully approve the report. So I'll hand you over to the Chief Officer of Governance to take us through the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, Chair, you'll see in the executive summary that I have set out a short list of the things that you must include within the annual report for the committee. Description of its work, notices received by the Adjudication Panel for Wales, and cases referred to it for a hearing. And of course, you had your first hearing during the period in question. I think the item that we might discuss or might attract the most discussion, paragraph 4 there, where the group leaders have complied with their duty to promote good behaviour. And then any recommendations to council on the functions under your remit. And of course, your remit as a committee is to promote compliance with and adherence to the code of conduct and good conduct generally. So committee members will recall that earlier this year you were able to meet with group leaders and discuss with them the steps that they have taken to comply with their obligation around promoting good conduct. You were, I think, satisfied that all but one had met their obligations, and in relation to the one who had not, you were going to ask me to provide some support to that councillor and to help them to improve in terms of their actions in relation to group members. But you will recall, Chair, that that group leader was then subsequently replaced by their group. That person had been a temporary group leader in effect. They'd taken over by default when the group was formed, and then when the group subsequently had a proper election within their own terms for a group leader, that group leader was replaced with another. I have provided induction to the new group leader on their duties in this respect. So I spent some time talking to that person, going through, explaining, and indeed I took I took an old good quality group leaders' response, anonymised it entirely, made sure that there was nothing in there that might lead one to be able to identify either the group leader or the group, and shared that with the new group leader to say, look, here's an example of what a group leader does, and it's one that you as a committee had endorsed and indeed had previously made recommendations about. So I was very confident that you were comfortable with the work of that group leader because you'd recommended some of their practices to others. So I showed that as an example and said, look, these are the things that this person do. I'm not saying you have to do all of them, but if you were to do things similar, then I'm sure the committee would be equally satisfied in future. Now, there were concerns raised during this process, Chair, about some social media activity, and it is something that you as a committee felt sufficiently strongly about that you wish to mention. At the time it was mentioned in relation by some group leaders in respect of one particular group. Since then, it has transpired that actually members in another group have behaved in a similar way. And so you will see that the wording in the report highlights just general concerns about social media activity, suggesting that there might be a normalisation of what you saw as deteriorating pattern of behaviour, and inviting group leaders to speak to their members and seek to uphold patterns of good conduct, and not just patterns of conduct that are permitted by the Code of Conduct, because I have always said the Code of Conduct is a very low safety net in relation to freedom of speech. Actually, what you want to see, hopefully what is reflected within the report, is an exhortation to patterns of good conduct and good behaviour, not just that which you can get away with within the report. Chair, we've normalised this. The terms Maxwellised it. We've shared this report with group leaders. When the report was drafted on the basis that there was just one group whose members had behaved poorly on social media, there was response to say, well, look, here are examples of other poor behaviour. That led to the report being changed. It didn't, of course, assuage concerns, because you and the Vice Chair have commented on this, didn't assuage your concerns because, of course, it's just two people doing the wrong thing rather than showing that one person didn't do anything wrong in the first place. And two wrongs don't make a right, do they, Chair? So that's why the report reflects that wording as it does. But having shared this draft now with new group leaders, we've had no further response in over a month. Chair, the report also goes through the work that you've done during the course of the year. Naturally, inevitably, it talks about the hearing in relation to Councillor Caudry, which was a very big part of your work. Certainly quite a time-consuming part of your work over the last your duties over the last 12 months. It references the annual meeting that we have town and community councils, and it also references the ethical liaison meetings. Of course, what it doesn't do, Chair, is reference it also references work with the WLGA, because it's a long time ago now, but members will recall May last year, behaviours and setting good cultures within organisation, delivered on behalf of the WA by Red Shiny Apple, Anna Morgan, and indeed some work will be undertaken next month, which is outside of this reporting period, to follow up on that in terms of a conversation internally about how relationships work, how that professional political interface works within the council, because of course we are set up as an organisation in a way that we have what we call checks and balances. Checks and balances can sometimes lead to fraught relationships if they're not managed correctly, because of course it can be seen as people trying to thwart legitimate political intentions on the part of officers. So that's a relationship and a dynamic within all councils that always needs to be nurtured, and we're doing some work on that later this month and in early next month with the WLJ as part of your ongoing recommendations from previous conversations with group leaders. If you recall, we started down this path, I think it was 2 years ago, when one of the then group leaders asked for training around respectful communication. And it's led on to the training with Anna Morgan, and also this conversation then about that relationship, professional, political relationship, understanding roles, understanding expectations, because that then leads to is more likely to lead to respectful communication, isn't it? If you know and understand why somebody is not able to help you in the way that you want, you might understand, you know, as a member, you think, well, actually, yes, that's because that's their role. Officers can't do that. From the officer perspective, we need to understand the pressures that members are under. Elected members are subject to a lot of pressure, increasingly so these days, I feel, from people who are unhappy with the council services, or they haven't had a good outcome in their interactions with us. And as officers, again, it's a very different perspective, I think, for officers to members in terms of our interactions with members of the public. We work typically office hours, although these days they vary, obviously. We don't get people ringing us up on Christmas Day or at 10 o'clock at night, or knocking on our door at 8 o'clock in the evening wanting to complain volubly about their latest problem. From officers' perspective, understanding those differing pressures, again, can be very important in terms of how we approach our roles with elected members. So that chair will help, hopefully, with that dynamic, but that's to come. But that is an example of a bit of work that you put in train coming out of annual reports and recommendations in previous years. So, Chair, the report's there. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Thanks for the work in putting it together, and also just giving us that summary overview as well of the work that's been undertaken together with the complex areas that we had to deal with during the year, and the ongoing training that we're working on as well. So can I open it up to members, please? Because we would like to, if we can, to approve this annual report this evening. Are there any areas specifically that you want some clarification on, or you actually feel need some amendment or correction? Is there anybody who'd like to come in? Can I bring in Councillor Ros Griffiths, who's in the room?
Just a minor thing. On page 16, under make-up of committees, it's got Councillor Ros Griffith, and it's got a cert on the end. Apart from that, I commend the report.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out, and we will make that amend. Can I bring in David Davis, who's in the room next, please, as well?
Yes, thank you. Page 19, there's reference to the committee's annual meeting with town and community councils that took place back in November. I just wonder whether it would be an idea just to note how many town and community councils actually attended that meeting. And if I can't recall whether it was regarded as a good turnout or not. And if it wasn't, I just wonder whether there's some work to be done in encouraging a greater attendance. So it might be an idea just to record how many of the 34 town and community councils actually attended that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very fair point to actually bring up. I don't know if the monitoring officer can help us at this point in terms of how many. It is something we can explore and look at if we haven't got access to that information immediately.
It's something I'd need to go away and look at, Chair. I can't remember.
But are we comfortable to actually include some information just to give an indication? And it gives us a bit of a benchmarking then, doesn't it, for going forward in terms of the representation, notwithstanding the fact that, of course, you get somewhere you might get more than one representative. You might get a clerk and a chair, for example. But it would certainly. Is everybody comfortable? I'll just bring in Councillor Hodge. Is it on the same point, Councillor Hodge? Yeah, I'll bring you in on that then, please.
It's a little bit of out of left field, but some of you know I actually chair the North and Mid Wales Association of Town and Community Councils. It's just a thought. We have our AGM in Connors Quay. If you were disposed to try and combine it, to come along and put that on the agenda within Connors Quay Town Hall, then I'm sure we'd appreciate it. It's just a thought, and it's not sort of a decision. But if you were minded to try and have a face-to-face, certainly with the councils, it could be advertised in advance and combined. It's just a thought.
Can I just clarify, are you suggesting that the joint meeting is held there, or that some representatives of the Standards Committee go to that joint meeting?
Whichever would be minded to be the best. It's just a thought that, you know, we meet every quarter, and the AGM is in Connors Quay, which is rather convenient for many of us. If you were disposed to try and add on to that, or do something face to face rather than on Zoom, whether we'd get a better response, because I didn't think the response was very well on Zoom from some councils. It's just something to throw in the mix. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for that suggestion. Can I just put that past the monitoring officer as a? Are there any thoughts on whether that would be something that we could undertake rather than?
We would have to convene a proper meeting. So it would have to have our agenda and so on. If we convene in one of our meetings, it has to be hybrid. It can't be in person only anymore. I don't know whether those facilities exist in Connors Quay.
I don't believe there are facilities for hybrid meetings in the Civic Hall in Connors Quay. There are in the chambers in From Road, but I don't believe there is facilities at the Civic Hall for hybrid.
So, Chair, if the venue could accommodate, then quite happy to arrange it so that it takes place either before or after the meeting of that association, but it would have to be a formally convened meeting of this committee with, you know, all the requirements around hybrid and so on. But yep, certainly happy to do that. Of course, the thing to bear in mind, Chair, is that of course we now have meetings here again. We have started having hybrid meetings, whereas in November last year we had not. We were just online. So it is possible that we might attract more people to here. I'm just trying to think. In the dim and distant past, Chair, we did used to hold our annual meeting out and about.
We did. We went to a library somewhere.
Yes, we would go to. We would go to somewhere that would host. Now that was again also before the obligations around broadcasting meetings were introduced. So the same considerations would apply. If there were to be a town or community council that was willing to host us and was able to offer broadcast facilities, then you could go peripatetic again, as once was the case.
Do you want to come?
Yes, I actually remember Gareth with a rather marvellous moustache in Kewis. So that was actually very, very well received. I think it was my first meeting. I was a town councillor then, and that certainly would be a positive.
Thank you. Can I just double check, Jill, your hand is up. Is it a different point? Or is it on this particular discussion?
It was a different point, although I do have an observation about what's just been suggested.
So would you like to share that observation on this point now then?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I think it's a great idea that's been suggested. My only question stroke concern is I'm not sure how long the meetings are, the quarterly meetings that have just been referred to, plus also obviously our own meeting. So it could inevitably be sort of very, very lengthy. So I'm wondering another option is rather than trying to have two meetings sort of dovetailed one after the other, is whether either all or some representatives of this standards committee go, if there were an invitation extended to us, to go and observe the quarterly meetings that have just been described. Is just another option.
Thank you for that thought. For me, I think one of the key things is whether the hybrid facility is available. Jill Murgatroyd is quite right that it could become a really long evening because, of course, you've got your business that you want to actually transact in your quarterly meeting. And maybe it is better on this occasion to have our formal standards committee meeting jointly with the town and community councils invited to hear, or if we find another venue that was willing to accept us out there, we could go out. In terms of actually, I don't know what the timing of or when your meeting is, because if your meeting is before our meeting date, perhaps you could put an item on the agenda and you could bring up the fact that we would like to invite and encourage them to join us at the meeting. Shall I hand over to you?
To be quite honest, Chair, having listened to Jill and realised, because obviously discussing what happened in Carewis when I actually attended, it would probably be better that we kept the two meetings separate and that we had the standards committee and invited those people to come to our meeting. Would be the best possibility on reflection.
Thank you for that, but thank you for drawing it to our attention, because it could have been a really good solution, couldn't it, to try and encourage more people. Is your meeting going to be before hours so that you can encourage people to actually attend?
Our meeting would be beforehand, so we can put it out to the various councils that the meeting is going to take place in the near future, the date, and we could put it on our agenda as a double sort of reminder to people. That wouldn't be a problem.
Thank you. I think that would be really, really good if you wouldn't mind doing that. I don't know what people feel about that. Yeah, I can see lots of nods. And
do you want me to see whether any town or community council would be willing and able to host us
as a hybrid
for our November meeting?
How do people feel about that? I think it sounds like a good idea that at least we could have asked, can't we, and see if there is a venue that could do that. Can I see a show of hands if you'd like us to explore that through the monitoring officer? Yeah, that's everybody.
Okay, I'll do
so that would be I think that would be good.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. So we go back to thank you. We go back to other points then on this annual report. And Jill Murgatroyd, you had something else you wanted to draw to our attention or to discuss. So can I hand over to you?
Thanks, Chair. It's just 3 points, if I may. The first on page 15 and the associated one on page 18, it's the track changes. With the comment, it's just really to say I support what's being highlighted there. I'm not sure who wrote the first comment on each, but I agree, for consistency it should be the same whichever it is. The second one is on page 18. It's the third chunk down, the third box, the one that there's 2 paragraphs in that one. the one that starts with the committee also received notification on page 18. I don't know if it's just me not quite understanding, but the second sentence where it says again, these are not a common part of the work of the committee. I'm not sure what the word these is referring to. Is it allegations? Or is it the fact that it's rare that it's not a common part that we receive notification? I just think a little bit of clarity. I agree with the sentiment of what's being said, but it's just I didn't quite know what these was referring to.
So before you go into a third point, then I'd read it as these meaning notifications, that we don't regularly receive notifications, but I'll ask the monitoring officer just to clarify.
That is what it means, Chair. So I'll put notifications from the APW.
That's
Thank you.
great. Thank
That'll
you.
clarify it. Thank you
That's
for
all
drawing
it
that
is.
to our attention.
Yeah.
And do you have another
Yeah,
point?
I do. It was only because notification was in the singular on line 1 and these on line 3. The final point is on page 21 at the very bottom, recommendations for action, which was last year's that we're obviously reporting on. And I think it's really great that we've highlighted what the recommendations were. And I can see over the page on 22, we're highlighting sort of 9 new recommendations for the forthcoming year or for this current year. I'm just wondering if it would be helpful for members reading this report if they knew what the outcome was of the 3 recommendations that we made last year. And the reason I mention that particularly is because obviously this year over the page we're making 9 recommendations. And it's very easy for recommendations just to disappear into the ether. And I think it just could be helpful for whoever's reading it to understand what difference or what has happened as a result of the recommendations. It only needs to be 1 line or whatever for each of those 3 points.
Thank you. Yeah, I do understand what you're saying, and I can see how that would be beneficial to show that some actions have been taken. I was just rereading through them now, and I was thinking, well, yes, it could be checked by asking group leaders, couldn't it, whether the committee feedback has become a standing item. The offer, it's a bit more difficult unless we actually said how much support and guidance, how many instances of support and guidance were asked for. But then on the other hand, it just depends on the circumstances of that year, doesn't it? It would be a very difficult benchmark, that one. And the third one, again, yes, we could actually state about the number of dispensations, but again, that's another one that's a bit of an open-ended book because it depends on how many instances there would be where people would need to have a dispensation. That's me just thinking aloud. Did you want to come back in, Jill?
Thanks, Chair. I guess it could be as simple as points 2 and 3 that we have made that open offer. Not necessarily how many have taken up the offer necessarily, but we made the offer, and again, I'm sure through the monitoring officer, I can't recall off the top of my head, but number 3, I'm sure that will have happened, and we can just highlight the date in which it happened. I think it just keeps us accountable, and it will help us then when we look at the actions, the recommendations for this current year as well. It'll keep us focused.
Yeah, that's a really good suggestion. And I'm just asking the monitoring officer in terms of the point 1, is it possible to actually ask the current
I can do that, Chair.
group leaders, and then we'll have an indication then, won't we, how many have that as a standing item? So that's a really good one to actually move forward on. But can I ask other members, are the members comfortable with that sort of stance? I'm seeing nods in the room and I'm seeing nods online, I think. Yep, I've got thumbs up online. Yeah, I have as well. So if we could possibly do that, that would be really useful. Thank you for those points. Anybody else got anything to ask? Mark Morgan, can I bring you in? And welcome back, Councillor Dave Hughes, who's managed to rejoin the meeting as well.
Thank you, Chair. Just following up from what has just been said there by Jill, I wonder for completeness, I think I'm happy that I've seen each of those 3 recommendations in practice. So could we just to avoid further work, we could potentially write that we have seen evidence of each recommendation in practice. And then the other very, very minor one, page 19, second box, point 4, should there be a gap between the and the community? And then finally, I know others have obviously seen the outcome, but just to highlight that yourself, Chair, and the Chief Monitoring Officer in particular have done a lot of work behind the scenes here in perhaps some choppy waters. So thank you. I think you've done well.
Thanks for those comments. Thank you very much. Shall we let those items 1, 2 and 3, let the Chief Officer, Monitoring Officer?
I can put some words against it, Chair, just to say that we've done those things, because of course I can ask group leaders about standing items. Indeed, I think committee members asked group leaders that when they spoke with them earlier in the year. I recall at least one group leader being asked that question.
And it would give a further prompt, wouldn't it, if it hasn't been considered, perhaps? Yeah.
The open offer was circulated because, of course, the annual report goes to full council from here, and so that clearly it's contained within there. And indeed, I circulated the annual report to town and community councils as well in the area. I can't remember, but I will check, Chair, whether I included reference to dispensations within the covering letter for that report, but I send it to all town and communities.
Thank you. Thanks for those comments, Mark Morgan. Jill Murgatroyd, did you want to come back in?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it's just and thanks for that, Gareth. Really helpful that you're going to do that. It's just then prompted me to think in terms of the recommendations then that we're identifying, the 9 recommendations on page 22 for this current year. I'm not saying that we need to discuss them now, but again, just so they don't get lost, whether we just need to make sure these are actually actioned at some point during the course of the year. So whether we just want to follow this up at a future meeting, or that Gareth comes back and lets us know, or we can have a discussion, but something just so these 9 really helpful suggestions don't get lost in the midst.
That's a good point, and perhaps we could add that to the forward work programme, say for January meeting, just for us to revisit and see what progress has been made on those areas. So we've managed to have good discussion on this particular one. I'm hoping now that we have come to the conclusion of the discussion and get someone to move that with those changes and discussions we've had, we could move to recommend that we approve the annual report. Mark Morgan, are you putting your hand up too?
Just very quickly, and again, building on what Jill has just said, Chair, could we suggest to the group leaders that they address each of those 9 points when they come to doing their reports in due course? And it will make everyone's world a lot easier.
Yes, some of them is our responsibility as well, isn't it, as a standards committee? So, because there are things that we've actually said that we will do, but the ones that
sorry, the ones with the responsibility for them.
Yeah, that we could do. Yeah, thank you for that. People comfortable with that? Councillor Hodge, and then I'm going to draw the discussion to a conclusion and move forward with this one. So last comment then, thank you.
It's just an observation. I'm in a very small group, and we keep referring to group meetings and the various issues, but there's no structure for any group to actually ever hold a meeting. And if they don't hold a meeting, then we can't really follow through some of these items. So should we put forward some sort of structure that groups should hold meetings and how often they should hold them.
Thank you for that. I'm going to defer to the monitoring officer on that particular point.
The point about having group meetings, or in this context, is that the Standards Committee wishes to see the issues discussed at the group and to make sure that these issues are communicated to the group. Doesn't have to necessarily be through a group meeting. There are other means of communication. In smaller groups, they can be less formal than it would be the case for a larger group. So I don't think the committee necessarily needs to be prescriptive about the medium, provided the goal is achieved, which is that obviously standards issues are raised and discussed, support is provided, encouragement is given to good behaviour, and so on and so forth. I mean, it might be that the group, I'm not sure, I don't think that many members of your group, Councillor Hodge, actually have a social media account. So your group leaders aced one of those recommendations for a start, hasn't he? Because it's not a problem. So there is a huge amount of variety in it. So I think the goal is the important thing, isn't it? The spirit.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having a discussion about that. So can I have someone to move that we approve the annual report with the things that we discussed and added added to the forward work programme as well? Can I have someone to move that? Councillor Rhodes-Griffiths, and seconded by Councillor Hodge. Can I see a show of hands if you approve that then, please? Thank you, that's carried then. So thank you very much for taking us through that item. Can I move us on to then item 7, which is a review of the hearings procedure. If you remember, we've done a lot of work on this. We had a hearing, well, we first developed a hearings procedure because we had an upcoming hearing and we needed a procedure in order to handle that hearing. We then heard the hearing and then we reflected following the hearing on our hearings procedure to see whether there were any lessons that we learned or areas that worked or didn't work for us in terms of that procedure, and did it need review. And then we had 2 quite long meetings, didn't we, to actually go through it bit by bit, to actually add, take away, discuss, reflect, etc. So the stage that we're at the moment is that we're practically on the final stage. So I'm not really expecting major things to come out this evening because we've done those pieces of work already. So what I am going to do, though, I'm just going to hand you over to Matthew Powell, our Legal Services Manager, who's just going to give us just a very brief flick through some of the key changes without going into great detail, because you all have the paper and the overview paper does actually give us that detail. And then just if there's anything that finally we just want to draw to the attention, and then I think we're in stage practically then as a committee to actually approve that that updated procedure based on our reflections and discussions, etc. So I'll hand you over to Matt Powell. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for that very comprehensive introduction to my report. Chair, because the report details the changes being proposed as well as the rationale, I don't intend to run through all of those changes. It does capture the matters that were identified in the sessions to which you refer. Broadly speaking, the changes aim to simplify the process and in some cases expand upon the process to provide clarity. The recommendation is to adopt twofold. So firstly, to adopt the revised procedure, and secondly, that the procedure is added to the rolling review of procedures. So it comes up once each authority term, as well as any other time that the members of the Standards Committee consider it appropriate to review. That will ensure that the procedure remains up to date and pertinent. So that would just mean it needs to be added to the forward work programme. Chair, unless you need me to provide any further detail, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much for that. So what I'm going to do then, I'm going to open it up to members for a brief discussion then on any key things that are jumping out at you or things you want clarity on this particular procedure, which of course is really important to us in terms of holding hearings. So first of all, can I bring in Councillor Teresa Carberry, please?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say I thought it was a very comprehensive report, and it certainly, I know I wasn't there for part of what took place, but it certainly conforms with my memory of the occasion and all the work that we did. So I wanted to thank everybody that was involved in writing it. There is a typo, however, on page 42, under 4.2, on the first line, it says, secondly, after 28 days plus any, and I think it's supposed to be additional.
Yep, well spotted, yes,
Okay.
it is. Thank you for drawing that to our attention. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Can I bring in Councillor Ross Griffiths?
I keep forgetting. Yeah, a typo in section 201. It's set out below the key changes to the procedure. Other changes are included. I don't think R should be there.
So what page is that on?
Page, it's a big one, 24. Section 201.
Is that, so that one is, sorry, so sorry.
Sorry.
So that particular document is the original document. So do you want to double check it against the revised document,
Yeah.
which is afterwards, and just see if that still appears in the revised document as well? Thank you. Anybody else? Sorry. Anybody else got anything they want to raise? I know you all did a lot of work on it at the time. No? Okay. So in terms of the recommendation then, we have a couple of recommendations on page 23. So recommendation 1 is that we adopt the revised procedure for dealing with reports regarding alleged breaches of a local authority's code of conduct for members, as we've got set out in our appendix 2 that we just looked at, notwithstanding the fact that we have a typo or two just to double check as well. Can I have someone to move that we do that and adopt it? I can see Councillor Ian Hodge. Can I have a seconder, David Davis? And can I see a show of hands if that procedure's... Yep, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. And then the recommendation 2 is that the procedure will form part of our Standards Committee rolling review of procedures once every authority term, and at any other time that we consider it's appropriate to consider whether it still remains up to date and pertinent. So can I have someone to move on that, please? Councillor Teresa Carberry, seconded by Councillor Anthony Wren. And can I see a show of hands on that as well, please? So that again is carried unanimously. Thank you very much for that, and for everybody, including Matt Powell for all his work on bringing that together, and then for the monitoring officer for also reviewing that as well. So what I'd like to do then is to move you on to item 8, which is our forward work plan, and you should find that on pages 51 to 54 of your pack. This is quite important that we're planning rather than just being reactive, isn't it? And we've already mentioned something that's going to be added that we discussed earlier. Can I just have a reminder from the monitoring officer? We said we'd add
Review of progress against the 9 recommendations in the annual report.
And we said we'd put that into January, did we?
You did, Chair.
So that review will go into January. Can I, before I open it up to the floor, remind you that we were having a discussion about the dispensations process. I think I fed back on that, did I, at the last meeting, in terms of feedback from the National Standards Forum?
Yes.
I think, and sort of drafted what I thought we did, and then the monitoring officers also looked at it. And in discussions with the monitoring officer, we were minded to actually put it on the agenda when we have the joint meeting with the town and community councils, because we thought that might be an appropriate point to actually just formalise that process. So I don't know what people feel about that, if that went on to the November joint meeting. Can I see any, if there's an agreement, can you just put your thumbs up if you're happy with that? Yeah, I can see people are quite happy with that, or hands up. Thank you very much. And then also there's, I just want to check with the monitoring office, is there something, a Senedd report about local resolution and ethics?
Yes, Chair. So the Welsh Government Chair has convened a working group with town and community councils. They've invited representatives from lawyers in local government, the monitoring officers group, to attend that, to talk about experience, town and community councils' experience of using local resolution. We'll be represented by Mr. Powell, who's volunteered for that one. And there are a number of other monitoring officers and indeed standards committee chairs from Wales. I think the feeling is that the One Voice Wales template for local resolution is rather brief and doesn't provide sufficient support or guidance. So they were looking to expand on that. And the suggestion, Chair, in discussion was that we should ask town and community councils, firstly, whether they have a local resolution protocol, whether it is based on the One Voice Wales protocol template, and if they do have a local resolution protocol, what is their experience of seeking to operate it, if any? And if we did that for the November meeting, then of course there is a ready-made conversation for ourselves and in town and community councils that attend that meeting. So assuming you're happy to add that as an item, what I do, Chair, is what I always do around this time, which is write to town and community council saying, look, November meeting coming up, this is where you get to put items on the agenda. Have you got any suggestions? By the way, we're thinking about having this discussion, so please, let us know. And so we'll try and gather the statistical data in advance, and then any that come or attend the meeting can obviously share their views and experiences.
So how do people feel about that as a strategy, a suggestion to put on the agenda for that November meeting? Are you comfortable with that suggestion? I'm seeing nods in the room. Online, yeah, are you comfortable with that? I'm not seeing any dissent or anybody disagreeing. So fantastic. So we've got some very appropriate items then, haven't we, for that joint meeting, which will be a meaningful part of a meaningful agenda for the people who do come to that meeting. So can I open it up then? Have we got any other areas on our forward work programme that we need to consider?
Chair, we've got the item down about items for the next Standards Forum in November. I can't remember when the next Standards Forum is taking place. Is it January next year? Will it actually be a bit too late in November? Will it have actually already taken place in, say, October?
Right, so just bear with me. So the next Standards Committee Chairs Forum is going to be January the 26th, 2026. Okay.
So you could actually have items for the next Standards Forum at the 12th of January meeting.
We could, yeah, we could do that. Thank you. Anything else that, do we need to be thinking about anything following the training, the peer sessions that are coming up?
You will note, Chair, that we already have rolling review of the protocol on member officer relations. It might be a bit premature by then because we may not have had a chance by the 3rd of November to discuss with group leaders any changes coming out of sessions that take place on the 1st and 2nd of October.
So that may have to
might need to
push,
but
we could leave it there.
We'll see if we can get to. We'll see if we can get there.
Okay. Anything else anybody wants to draw to our attention? No, I'm not seeing anything anywhere. We will revisit this, of course, as we do regularly. So can I have somebody to move that we're, with those suggestions, we're comfortable with that programme? Thank you, Mark Morgan. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Wren. And see a show of hands that people approve that. Thank you, that's unanimous as well then. So that's our forward work plan. We're now going on to our items for information, and we have agenda item 9, which you'll find starting on page 55 of your pack, which is the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales annual report for the year 2024-2025 and the annual letter for Flintshire County Council. So I'm going to hand over to the Chief Officer Governance to lead us through this particular item, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. So as you identified from the title, there are 2 parts to this: the Ombudsman's annual report in relation to her own office and the business of their own office, and then the annual letter, which is a commentary on Flintshire County Council. Not all of the annual letter is within this committee's remit. Discussion about service complaints sits with Governance and Audit Committee and Overview and Scrutiny Committees. The parts of the annual letter for this committee are in relation to Code of Conduct complaints at Appendix G. I'll come on to that in a moment. So the Ombudsman's report, it talks about the independent review that they had to undertake. You may recall that a team leader with responsibility for code investigations was found to have been posting highly politicised comments online using pseudonyms. Those highly politicised comments targeted a particular group, a political party, and so inevitably called into question whether decisions in relation to councillors from that party or from opposition parties had been treated in the same manner, had been treated equitably. So they engaged a QC, Casey as she is now, to undertake that review, and the review found that there was no evidence that those private political beliefs had manifested in the team leader's professional work. But nevertheless, the KC made a number of recommendations, which the Ombudsman's Office accepted. One of those was that they should consult town councils on whether to reinstate the practice of notifying councillors when a complaint is received about them. Because you may recall, for a period of 3 or 4 years, the Ombudsman's Office would get a complaint and then make a decision whether or not they're going to investigate without contacting the member. They would then subsequently, if they were investigating, obviously give the member a chance to make their own view, make representations. But they consulted. Our views were mixed. The views of our members were mixed. We gave a balanced response to that consultation, but they nevertheless decided to revert to their former practice of notifying members. So now, when a complaint is received by the Ombudsman's Office, they write out to the member concerned. They tell them, they give them a summary of the complaint. The member has the opportunity at that point to make representations if they wish, anybody seeking my advice at that point will be advised that they should do so. It also gives the member an opportunity, if they need to avail themselves of the defence scheme that's available through the council's insurance for those members that contribute towards the premium. I've used that, I've given members that advice. Members have followed that advice. Where they needed to give an apology, they've given apologies in the past. Where they needed to make representations about whether or not this should be taken forward in the public interest, they've done so. So they've adopted that process as a result of the review. Statistically, you can see that actually numbers of complaints have dropped slightly. And Chair, I have a graph. It has been circulated to you. This was a graph obtained by Mr. Powell from the Ombudsman's Office. I'm going to put it up online just so that you can see it. I have jiggled about a bit with it Chair, which is a very untechnical way of describing what I did. The font was incredibly small, and in many cases the information points on the year-on-year comparison were so heavily overlapped that it was impossible to read. But you will see, Chair, on the left-hand side, classification, and here we have the complaint numbers by different parts of the code for the last 3 years. So you can see there, disclosure and registration of interest, upholding law, integrity, equality and respect, Chair. I'm just going to scroll down slightly. Bear with me. Equality and respect will jump out to you, Chair, as being the one that gets the majority of the complaints. There you go. So you see, disclosure and registration of interests, 69 complaints during the period. Promotion of equality and respect, 163. Makes up over half of the complaints that they get. So this is about people who are unhappy about the way that they have been treated, whether that be actual discrimination, which is the promotion of equality arm of that statement, or whether that be just that person was rude, offensive, so on and so forth. So significant, and that I think is probably borne out, Chair, when we look at the overview of ethical complaints later on. You'll see that's borne out again in the way that complaints are made about our own members. Now, Chair, this is the graph. I had to unpick it in order for you to be able to see the numbers. So these numbers down the left-hand side here reflect the different years. So, and what I've done is I've listed them I've pulled them out so that they're not overlapping. And you'll see the little line links it back to the data point, and they go from top to bottom. So 25 relates to disclosure and registration of interests. I think that's the top orange line. No, sorry, that 25 relates to duty to uphold the law. 32 is disclosure of interest, and then they go down. So 18 is the pale blue line, integrity, 8 is the purple line, objectivity, and 4 is the bottom line. So I've pulled them out of the sides just so that you can see them. I think you can see there very clearly that whilst there are some fluctuations, again, in all cases, in all years, promotion of equality and respect are consistently top of the chart in terms of the numbers of complaints received. And there, you'll see the overall number of complaints, code cases by subject over time. So numbers have dropped slightly. One of the things that the Ombudsman's annual report does say, and we have again, Chair, seen this in our own experience, they have taken on extra staff to cope with the increase in numbers. And we have seen that through the overview of ethical complaints reports, where I've talked about the tumbling number of complaints that have been open for 12 months or more. They went through a real purple patch for a while there, didn't they, where we had, I think, 5 or 6 complaints that were outstanding for over 12 months. There is now only 1, and that is in train, actively being investigated, evidence being gathered. And so we know that that one is in hand. Then, Chair, in relation to ourselves, in terms of the annual letter and Appendix G, we've had 12 complaints. They don't do a comparison between councils in the way that they do for service complaints. So they don't do how many complaints under the code have you had per head of population or 1,000 head of population, which they do for complaints. In service complaints, 12 complaints perhaps might be slightly higher than average, bearing in mind that there are 22 councils. And bearing in mind that the majority of complaints are made about town and community councillors, over 50% of complaints are made about town and community councillors, because there are simply so many more of them. We don't actually have that many town and community councils. We have 34. Gwynedd and Powys have nearly 100, I think, for Gwynedd, and over 100 for Powys. So you, Ewan and Clive, as my opposite numbers out there, really have their work cut out for them. So perhaps relatively high number. That might be a good thing in the sense that we have people who are aware of their rights. It might be a bad thing in as much that it indicates behaviour, but it is fair to say that the Ombudsman doesn't necessarily investigate all of those, and indeed only one complaint within the last 12 months, I think, has been taken into investigation. All the other complaints that we had under investigation were for 24, 25.
Okay, thank you.
So, Chair, the report's there for information. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you for that comprehensive overview. Has anybody got any comments, queries, questions? I've got Mark Morgan, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of some feedback, I appreciate stats can be spun in different ways, but I personally think this is positive. If you look at Appendix A, we are certainly in the bottom half nationally in terms of complaints received, and then Appendix E, we're one of only 2 councils that have got 100% compliance with the recommendations within agreed time targets. So I think that's a real positive, and thank you should go to those involved in supporting that work.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and just to point out, just for clarity, those are the service complaints. But yeah, it is a positive for the county, isn't it? For sure. Thank you very much for that.
And that reflects a lot of hard work by one of my managers, Rebecca Jones, customer contact manager, and the network of people that she leads within the council who respond to complaints. So she heads that up. But it was an area where a couple of years ago it wasn't such a positive and rosy picture. It's fair to say, and it has been an area of focus for us, for Rebecca and the people in all of the portfolios that work with Rebecca.
Thank you for that. Anybody else got any comments to make? So, thank you. Can I get someone to move then that we have considered the matters relating to the Code of Conduct Complaints report? Thank you, Councillor Ross-Griffiths. Somebody to second that we've considered it. Thank you, David Davis. So, see a show of hands just to say we have. Thank you very much. That's unanimous as well. Thank you. So, can I move us on then to the next item, which is item 11, which is the overview of, actually it's item 10, sorry, it should be item 10 on this agenda.
Yeah, it should. Sure.
Yeah, sorry. Item 10, which is the overview of the ethical complaints. And we have that on pages 101 to 108 of your papers. So our purpose is that we note the number and type of complaint. So again, I'm moving over to the monitoring officer to take us through that one. Thank you.
Already very much touched on this. We've had further complaints concluded, investigations concluded without any action against the councillor. Interestingly, Chair, this is one of the complaint that was closed with no further action being taken was one where the councillor spoke to me. I said to the councillor, yeah, okay, you accept that you've done wrong, put in a swift apology, apologise to the individual, and then write to the Ombudsman, tell them that you've apologised, and invite them that it doesn't need to go any further under the second stage of their 2-stage test. The councillor did that. Ultimately, that was the decision. I had hoped the councillor might have been able to save themselves somewhere like 12 months of being under investigation. Surprisingly, that was not the case. The councillor was investigated, and it took a very long time to conclude. But ultimately, in the end of that, because the councillor had apologised, it featured really strongly in the Ombudsman's dismissal of the investigation. So, yeah, very positive outcome for that councillor, and that goes back to what I was saying about when a member does get notified of a complaint. sometimes a bit of independent advice. If it is you've done wrong, you need to put your hands up. Then an early recognition of that fact will often stand the member in good stead. And indeed, sometimes the member can be advised that they have other grounds or other options open to them in terms of challenging the complaint. So, Chair, the information is there for members to see. I don't know if there are any questions. We've only got one complaint outstanding at the moment, as I said earlier, and that's actively being investigated. So,
Thank you for drawing that together for us. Has anybody got any questions, queries?
are there any messages, Chair, that come from what you see that helps people to learn by other people's mistakes?
So I've got David Davis wanting to come in, so I'll start with David Davis.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just in relation to that individual member that's been referred to, and the fact that the apology was as far as it went, I just wonder whether there might be some informal training that that member would benefit from. Thank you.
Thank you for that query. I'll hand you to the monitoring officer on that one.
The member came to me recognising before the complaint had been made that they had done wrong. As I said, I advised them at the time to give an apology straight away, which they were very happy to do. They then subsequently repeated that and sent that back to the Ombudsman. So that member knows, I think, that they had done it with the best of intentions. They had shared some personal data. It was visible personal data, though. It was to say that somebody was disabled, and that this was the reason why they weren't able to do work in their garden, and that councillor had spoken to the council about trying to get them some help with their garden. Now the person walked with a stick. Very clearly, physically had a physical impairment or a disability, and that person then complained that the councillor had disclosed personal data. Well, in terms of personal data breaches, Chair, that is on the minor end of scale, it must be said, because as I say, visible that this person, was not a secret that this person had a physical disability. We know that not all disabilities are visible. That one was. Really quite surprising the Ombudsman investigated it all and then took so long to do it, I have to say. But that person knows they've done wrong, Chair.
Thank you for, so you're comfortable with that one. Anybody else got anything, or are there any trends that are coming out there that we need to, can I hand over to Councillor Rem?
Yeah, that's not difficult to observe, but the most common type of complaint is comments on social media, Facebook, etc.
Yeah, we've had discussions about that, haven't we, and the sort of strategies that we're going to do about that. I don't know if the monitoring officer wants to come in with any more about that.
I think one of the things that we did, and I might have gone back to the review of the Officers Code, where we looked at examples of how different councils have dealt with the issue, and I think we picked up on Wrexham's wording in relation to it, because they had the salutary reminder, didn't they, that it can be very quick to post something on social media and then it's around the world in seconds and you can't get rid of it afterwards. So if you be very careful when posting anything on social media, particularly if you have been imbibing alcohol, because a brief moment of indiscretion can be extremely globally public very, very quickly. And that is always a reminder. It was one of the things, Chair, even one of the recommendations in your annual report, that we would arrange training for people, and that will certainly be one of the things I think that's part of that training. A brief slip can lead to worldwide recognition. One of the things, Chair, that you might have noticed is that we have complaints, and if you put the two reports together, if you look at Appendix G, you will see that one of our local councils had 3 complaints. If you look at this report, you will see that they're all in relation to the same council and the same councillor. and they are allegations of religious intolerance and racial intolerance. And that, I think, highlights the challenge that we face. A large number of people found those comments to be understandably offensive, but the Ombudsman will not investigate just because they are offensive. People have the right to be shocking and offensive if they wish, provided they're not egregious or unreasonable. And so, yeah, we've got a number of examples there. One individual pursuing political views that are common to people of his political persuasion, views that are common to people of his political persuasion and that political party. But that has generated a lot of complaints. If we see in the 27 elections that a large number of councillors from that political party being elected, we might see more complaints of that nature, Chair, because I think there is a mismatch between public expectation and what the law can tackle.
Yeah.
And this goes back to my point about the code of conduct being a very low safety net around freedom of expression. So that councillor perfectly entitled to express those views, but a lot of people disagree with them and think that we should be able to do something about it.
Okay, thank you. Any other areas? David Davis, can I bring you?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wonder, it might be a pertinent opportunity at the November joint meeting with town and community councils, that a gentle reminder in terms of the perils of the social media could be drawn to their attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we weave that into the agenda?
We should have the annual report from the APW there.
Ah, there we are then.
If it's been published.
Okay.
If it has been published, then yep, that will come out very clearly.
Yeah, are people comfortable with that suggestion? It seems a good opportunity, doesn't it, to sort of reinforce the point. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, I'm not seeing any others. So can I have someone to move that we've considered the number and type of complaints and considered whether any issues that we need to communicate? So someone to move on that, please, then. I've got Mark Morgan, thank you very much, seconded by Councillor Wren. A show of hands that we've done that. Yeah, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. So can I move this on then to item 11? And I'm aware that we've had a personal declaration on that one. Thank you for doing that earlier on, Jill Murgatroyd. So this is the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales My Findings publication. And what our purpose with this is to consider the summary of cases related to alleged breaches of the Members' Code of Conduct, the code as published by the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales in their publication My Findings. And we've had quite a comprehensive set of papers there to look at and to consider. And they run from page 81 to page 108. So I'm going to hand you over to the Legal Services Manager just to give us a brief overview of that, and then we'll take any questions. We aren't intending to go into full technicolor about every case because you've had all of those papers to actually review and to look at, just to draw out if you wanted to ask anything or to actually highlight any trends that we need to actually think about. So I'll hand you over. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is an update on the Ombudsman findings. It's Wales-wide. It's usually brought to the committee annually, but this report covers a 2-year period, which goes some way to explaining the length of the appendix. The Standards Committee members are asked to review the cases summarised in the report and identify any themes or messages. During the period from the 1st of September 2023 to date, effectively, there are 52 findings. For comparison, over the previous 2-year period, there were 40 findings. So the number of findings has increased slightly over the more recent 2-year period. And the detail of the report breaks those down into the 7 categories. And of those 52 findings in the last 24 months, promotion of equality and respect by far remains the most common category. But only 4 appear to directly relate to social media. That may indicate that awareness around use of social media is improving, but identifying trends from a summary of cases is quite difficult because they do tend to turn on their own facts and only provide a national context. Chair, as the monitoring officer mentioned earlier, to assist members in identifying trends, I requested some additional data from the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales. Our findings data, that's the data that this report specifically relates to, isn't available in the format that was shared earlier. But that spreadsheet does show total complaints and is perhaps still helpful for context when identifying trends. So I wonder if the monitoring officer might be able to share that again. Thank you. So I think insofar it relates to the report, it does show, of course, that the promotion of equality and respect is by far the category with the greatest number of complaints. It does show a small reduction in complaints of that nature over the period, and also shows a small uptick in complaints around disclosure, registration of interests. So, Chair, the reports there, plus the additional paper shared, I'm happy to take any questions.
Chair, I think one of the things about why there are so few findings in relation to social media is, of course, because the Ombudsman won't investigate matters relating to freedom of political expression. So they wouldn't ever get to the my findings stage because they weed them out at the start, which goes back to the comments I made earlier about low safety net and a mismatch, I think, in terms of expectation between what the public might want us to look at and what the law permits us to deal with.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we have to always remember that there's the public interest test, isn't there, and also the evidence test before anything does actually get investigated. And
the public interest in relation to Article 10 very much, which is the right to freedom of political expression, very much favours the uninterrupted and unchallenged freedom to express views, whether they are regarded as offensive or not, because we very quickly find ourselves in a situation in which we would not wish to be if one is not able to express dissident thoughts and ideas.
Yeah.
You know, as a one-time student of 18th century political history, there was an offence of sedition. So publishing an article that criticised the government. And there were people like the author of Gulliver's Travels. That was a political critique, but it was published as a satire. Jonathan Swift, in order to get around the rules on sedition. So yeah, it's heavy political satire, and there's a lot of political satires in that time. But they had to go about it in a more oblique way because there were quite heavy restrictions on freedom of political expression. And if you think about those parts of the world today where you can't criticize the government, one thinks of Saudi Arabia, China, Russia, America, increasingly, it's sad to say, and you quickly see why in Europe we protect freedom of political expression, because if you're not able to stand up and say that behaviour is wrong, you get the rise of fascism and so on and so forth, as we
Yeah.
witnessed in the 20th century.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. So in terms of the paper that's been presented to us and this mass of information and cases that you've had the opportunity to look at, do you want to unshare that?
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any areas or trends or things that you want to ask about it, or anything you see coming out of it that we can learn from or start to think about in terms of our training or in terms of our protocols?
Just to help members trying to, weave a way through the large volume of information. Is there anything coming out of the findings where there were breaches, where there were found to be breaches or referrals that might be shared with other members, to say, look, we can see these things, or actually just share the findings where there were breaches and say, look, for your information, so that you as members have a reference point by which to reach your own interpretations of the code, thus guide your own conduct and behaviour. Here's examples of people who've made the wrong judgment.
This is me just thinking to myself now that in fact I went through these in quite a lot of detail, and some of the things were quite shocking, and you'd think, well, how could that have transpired, or did they really think that was appropriate behaviour, etc., etc. And I was wondering whether it would be a document to actually share with councillors if they were minded to have a look, because councillors do have access to it, don't they?
Yes.
As members of the public do. But if we actually shared it with councillors or shared it with the group leaders.
We can share it with all councillors just as easily as with the group leaders. They wouldn't actually have access to it in this format, I think. Matt's done quite a bit of work pulling it together, and Mr. Powell has done quite a bit of work pulling it together into a single document, because it tends to be published case by case.
It does.
And actually, what he's done is downloaded all of those cases and then put them into a single document. Mr. Powell's indicating, Chair.
Mr. Owens, in that regard, some credit should go to your personal assistant, or all credit should go to your personal assistant, Laura Turley, who pulled that extremely helpful table together. The way the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales website works is that you can only access each of those reports individually. So it's a rather laborious task bringing it all into a table of that format, which is significantly easier to review.
Yeah, thank you. So I was wondering whether you feel it would be beneficial for us to actually share this with all councillors, for example. Not that we're saying anything has happened, but it might give them an opportunity to look at and reflect and think, oh, these sorts of behaviours could become an issue for us going forward, or gosh, how could that happen? We don't want that to happen here. I don't know. Councillor Osgood.
Yeah, I think it'd be useful for the councillors to actually see what's happened. I mean, I found it interesting to see the different lengths of sanctions that were placed upon each individual, from 2 months to 4 years. I found it quite interesting. I'm sure if they saw that information, it might have an effect, hopefully, on behaviours.
Thank you for that. What do other people feel about that suggestion to actually share it with councillors? In what sort of format would you share it? Just that at a standards committee meeting, the committee felt it would be beneficial for councillors to have the opportunity to see some of this information that we reviewed at our meeting.
Would you want the whole document shared, or would you just want the findings where there was a finding of a breach?
What do people feel? Someone says the findings. What about people who are joining us remotely? What do you feel about sharing the document, the whole document, or just where there were findings? Councillor Carberry first.
I think I'd prefer for the whole document to be shared, because it gives a really good overview, and I think it would give a good insight to all fellow councillors.
Thank you for that. Jill Murgatroyd, did you have an opinion?
Yeah, I think that's a sensible suggestion. I mean, clearly there's a huge amount of information here, but then councillors can then choose how much detail they want to go into, or they can just look at that overview. So I think to give them the opportunity of seeing both, then it's for their choice.
Thank you very much. Anybody else got any comments? I can see some nods in the room that people feel that would be a good way forward. So if we're able to do that, I think that would be useful. So is there anything else that you want to pull out of that in terms of, I mean, we in terms of trends and messaging, we are going to share it for councillors to look at. So we are communicating, aren't we? I don't know if there's anything else coming out of it that anybody wants to comment on. No, so I'm not seeing any indication. So can I have someone to move the fact that we've reviewed the cases summarised in the appendix to this report, and we've looked at any issues or themes that we feel need to be raised with all councillors, and actually what we're going to do out of it is actually to raise all the themes with all councillors in a way, because we are going to actually share the document. So can I have someone to move that we do that? And yeah, I've got Councillor Ian Hodge and Councillor Ros Griffiths, and can I see a show of hands then? Thank you very much. And so can I thank all the people involved in drawing this report together, because I think it's been quite a useful and comprehensive report for us, which has been really good. So finally, as I said before, item 12 then we've already covered. So that concludes the business of our meeting tonight. Can I thank you all for your attendance and for all your contributions? And can I thank you, everybody that supported us? Thank you very much, and everybody that's drawn the papers and information together. So our next meeting will be in
3rd of November.
3rd of November.
It may or may not be here. It may be somewhere else. I will try and find a local council that is willing and able to host us in hybrid format.
Lovely. So diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you very much, and do have a safe journey home, the ones that need to travel, and thank you very much for joining us online. We'll see you at the next meeting. Thank you. We'll close the meeting now. Thank you.
Thank you.